All right, so this section of notes is on the different cycles of matter that we have. And we need to look at this and contrast to our flow of energy that we looked at with our feeding relationships. So what we have to realize is that it is matter that is cycled. Energy is actually not cycled at all. And this is so that our nutrients can get moved around from place to place and organism to organism, but energy, because of that 10% rule, eventually it dies out. So that's why we need that constant input of energy from the sun. So we have three main cycles. We have the water cycle, we have the carbon cycle, and we have the nitrogen cycle. So in order to go through these, we are going to need you to also have out your printed notes for this unit, because you're going to actually be drawing the cycles on there, since you can't do it very easily on the computer. So we're going to look at the water cycle first, and we've got water moving between organisms and the environment through a couple of processes. So we have transpiration, we have evaporation, and we have precipitation. So let's see how these actually kind of fit in with each other. So on your paper, you should start off at the top here with condensation. Now, condensation wasn't one of the words we talked about on the last slide, but that's basically the turning of water vapor into kind of liquid water. And this happens in the atmosphere. So this is the formation of clouds. We then have precipitation, where that water returns from the atmosphere down to the earth. So this could be snow, this could be rain, this could be ice, this could be fog, this could be a lot of different things. The precipitation then leads to runoff, like along the land, sometimes when we have too much runoff, we get things like flooding. We also have root uptake, which happens with plants, so taking in of the water into plants. That's one of the ways that it can actually move. And then to close the cycle, we need evaporation and transpiration. So evaporation happens from bodies of water like lakes and rivers, or even streams, or a puddle even. Transpiration happens from plants. So plants actually take in water, and they use some of it for photosynthesis, but the excess they actually release into the atmosphere as gaseous or water vapor. And that travels back into the upper levels of the atmosphere for condensation. So at this point, this is a good time to go ahead and pause the video and make sure that you get all of this cycle copied down. Our second cycle is the carbon and oxygen cycle, and these two elements actually cycle kind of together. That's because we have two processes that work with them. The first one is photosynthesis, and if you look at the reaction here for photosynthesis, we have carbon and carbon dioxide, we have oxygen and carbon dioxide, and we also have oxygen and water. Those get processed through the process of photosynthesis into oxygen, which is in the air that we breathe, and glucose, which also has carbon in it. Now, in order to get that and kind of close the process, we have the second process, which is cellular respiration, which is the opposite of this. So we take the oxygen and glucose from the plants or the producers that are made through photosynthesis, and we make carbon dioxide and water. So in terms of a cycle that you want to sketch, we start off with carbon dioxide and water from our surroundings, and those turn into sugar and oxygen in plants through the process of photosynthesis. We then take the sugar and oxygen from plants, and we turn that into carbon dioxide and water in the surroundings through the process of cellular respiration. Again, this would be a good time to pause this video so that you can get this cycle copied into your notes. The last cycle that we want to look at is the nitrogen cycle, and the key component to the nitrogen cycle are the decomposers. They take the nitrogen-containing compounds in dead organic matter, so dead things, and they put it back into the soil in a usable form for the producers. Nitrogen is tied up in your proteins and also in your DNA, and without the decomposers we would run out of nitrogen to make more proteins and more DNA, so we could not make more organisms, and the organisms that we have would not be capable of growing. There are some bacteria that are able to take atmospheric nitrogen and change it into either ammonia, nitrate, or nitrite, and that process is called nitrogen fixation. The way I kind of remember it is almost like they're fixing the nitrogen so that it works for us, if that makes some sense. Most of the gases in the air that we breathe is nitrogen, but when we breathe it in, we can't use it in that form. So there, like I said, there's some very specialized nitrogen that are able to take it and change it so that the producers can use it, which gets it into our feeding relationships. So the last cycle we want to look at here and sketch is the nitrogen cycle. So we're going to start off with the producers, and the producers basically have two options in life. They can get eaten by something or they can die. Well, what do they get eaten by? Well, they get eaten by consumers. They can get eaten by primary consumers, and then those primary consumers can get eaten by secondary consumers, and so on. They can also die and go to the decomposers. Now, like I said, consumers can eat each other, but eventually they're going to die and also go to the decomposers. The decomposers take those the organic matter in those dead producers and dead consumers, and they pull out the nitrogen. They make it usable, and then the new producers can actually use it. So go ahead and let's pause the video here so that you can get this cycle completely copied down. Now, you will also be getting some handouts that you need to complete for this portion of the lesson. You will need some colored pencils for that, and when you are done with those, you can turn those in the turn-in box up front.